What would you do if you lost everything that mattered to you, but found that the memory of a mother's love could still work miracles? In the dusty hills of rural Tennessee, 12-year-old Lily Hawkins was about to discover that sometimes the most powerful magic comes not from wealth or strength, but from the songs we carry in our hearts and the courage to sing them when the world seems darkest. Lily's story began 3 years earlier, when her world was completely different. Back then, she lived in a cozy trailer with her mother, Grace Hawkins, who worked double shifts at the local diner to make ends meet. They didn't have much money, but their small home was filled with something far more valuable: music and laughter that seemed to chase away every shadow. Grace had the most beautiful voice Lily had ever heard, and every evening after work, no matter how tired she was, she would sit on their tiny front porch and sing old mountain songs that had been passed down through generations of their family. Her favorite was a haunting lullaby called Peaceful Valley, a song about finding calm in the midst of storms and hope in the darkest nights. "Music is magic, baby girl," Grace would tell Lily as they sat together watching the sunset paint the Tennessee mountains in shades of gold and purple. "When the world gets too loud or too scary, you just close your eyes and sing. The right song can heal a broken heart, calm an angry soul, and remind us that we're never truly alone." Lily learned every song her mother taught her, but Peaceful Valley was special. Grace would sing it whenever Lily had nightmares, when thunderstorms frightened her, or when the other kids at school made fun of her hand-me-down clothes. The gentle melody in her mother's warm voice had the power to make everything feel safe and right again. But their peaceful world shattered on a cold December night when Grace collapsed at the diner during her shift. The cancer that had been silently growing inside her body had finally revealed itself, and despite the doctor's best efforts, there was nothing they could do. Within 3 months, Lily found herself completely alone, with no family to take her in and nowhere to call home. The state placed Lily in the care of her great-uncle, Ezra Hawkins, a bitter and broken man who owned a failing cattle ranch on the outskirts of a small town called Cedar Ridge. Ezra had never married, had no experience with children, and made it clear from the first day that Lily was nothing more than an unwanted burden he was stuck with. The ranch where Lily now lived was a stark contrast to the warm home she had shared with her mother. The farmhouse was cold and run down, with peeling paint and windows that rattled in their frames. Ezra barely spoke to her except to assign chores, and he had forbidden her from singing, claiming that music was a waste of time that served no practical purpose on a working ranch. "You're not here to entertain yourself," Ezra would growl whenever he caught Lily humming one of her mother's songs. "You're here to work and earn your keep. I don't want to hear any of that nonsense your mother filled your head with." The silence in the house was oppressive, but Lily learned to sing quietly to herself when Ezra wasn't around, holding on to her mother's memory through the melodies that had once filled their evenings together. The songs were all she had left of the woman who had loved her unconditionally, and no amount of harsh words could make her forget them. Ezra's ranch was home to about 50 head of cattle, but the crown jewel of his herd was a massive Black Angus bull named Goliath. The animal was enormous, standing nearly 6 feet tall and weighing over 2,500 pounds, with jet-black hide and eyes that seemed to burn with perpetual anger. Goliath was worth more than all the other cattle combined, representing Ezra's last hope of keeping the ranch financially viable. But Goliath was also the most dangerous animal Lily had ever encountered. The bull had an explosive temper and an unpredictable nature that made even experienced ranch hands nervous. He had injured 3 different workers over the past year, and his aggressive behavior was getting worse as time went on. Ezra lived in constant fear that Goliath would seriously hurt someone and force him to destroy the animal that represented his only valuable asset. "Stay away from that bull," Ezra warned Lily repeatedly. "He's worth more than you'll ever be, and if you do anything to upset him, you'll be out on the street faster than you can blink." The other ranch hands, led by Foreman Jack Sullivan, had tried everything to manage Goliath's aggression. They had consulted veterinarians, animal behaviorists, and experienced cattle handlers, but nothing seemed to calm the bull's violent outbursts. Some days, Goliath would charge at anyone who entered his paddock, while other days he would stand in the corner and bellow with a rage that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside his massive frame. "That bull's got demons," Jack told Ezra, after another failed attempt to move Goliath to a different pasture. "I've been working with cattle for 30 years, and I've never seen anything like it. It's like he's in pain all the time, but the vet can't find anything wrong with him." Lily watched the daily struggles with Goliath from a distance, forbidden from getting anywhere near the valuable but dangerous animal. But something about the bull's behavior reminded her of her own pain. The way he seemed to rage against a world that had become cold and hostile. The way he isolated himself in corners, as if trying to escape from something that couldn't be escaped. Late at night, when she lay in her small, cold room missing her mother desperately, Lily could hear Goliath's occasional bellows echoing across the ranch. The sounds were filled with such anguish that they made her heart ache, and she began to wonder if the bull was grieving something, just as she was grieving the loss of everything she had once loved. One evening, as Lily sat alone on the front porch doing her homework by the dim light of a single bulb, she began to hum Peaceful Valley under her breath. The song brought back memories of her mother's warm embrace and the feeling of being completely safe and loved. For a few precious moments, she could almost imagine that Grace was sitting beside her, adding her beautiful voice to the melody. As Lily hummed, she noticed that the ranch had grown unusually quiet. Goliath's angry bellowing, which had been constant throughout the day, had stopped completely. She looked toward his paddock and saw the massive bull standing perfectly still, his head turned toward the house, as if he was listening to something that had captured his attention. The moment Lily stopped humming, Goliath resumed his agitated pacing and angry sounds. But when she began the song again, the bull grew calm and attentive, standing motionless in the moonlight as if he was drinking in every note. "That's impossible," Lily whispered to herself, but the evidence was undeniable. Somehow, the song that her mother had used to calm her fears and heal her pain was having the same effect on the most dangerous animal on the ranch. For the first time since her mother's death, Lily felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest. Maybe Grace had been right about music being magic. Maybe the songs that carried a mother's love could work miracles that no one else could understand. And maybe, just maybe, Lily had found a way to help both herself and the angry bull who seemed to carry the same kind of pain that lived in her own heart. The next morning brought chaos to the Cedar Ridge Ranch that would test everyone's limits and reveal the true power of a mother's love preserved in song. Lily woke before dawn to the sound of shouting and commotion coming from the direction of Goliath's paddock. Through her bedroom window, she could see several ranch hands running around in obvious distress, and Ezra's voice carried across the yard with an urgency she had never heard before. "Get Dr. Matthews out here now!" Ezra was shouting to Jack Sullivan. "And call the insurance company! If we lose that bull, we lose everything!" Lily quickly dressed and ran outside to see what was happening. What she found was a scene of complete pandemonium. Goliath had somehow broken through 2 separate fence barriers during the night and was now loose in the main yard, charging at anyone who came within 50 feet of him. The massive bull was in a state of rage unlike anything the ranch hands had ever witnessed, his eyes wild with fury and his powerful hooves tearing up the ground as he searched for targets for his aggression. "Nobody move suddenly," Jack called out to the gathered workers. "We need to get him back in the paddock without anyone getting killed." 3 different attempts had already failed to corner Goliath and guide him back to his enclosure. The bull seemed to anticipate every strategy the experienced ranch hands employed, and his anger only grew more intense with each failed attempt to contain him. 2 workers had already been forced to scramble over fences to avoid being trampled, and it was becoming clear that the situation was spiraling completely out of control. Dr. Rebecca Matthews, the large animal veterinarian who had been called to the ranch, arrived within an hour and assessed the situation with growing concern. "I can try to sedate him with a tranquilizer gun," she told Ezra, "but at his size and in this state of agitation, the dosage would have to be so high that it could easily kill him. And even if the sedation works, we still don't know what's causing this extreme behavioral change." Ezra's face was pale with worry and financial desperation. Goliath represented the ranch's last hope for solvency, and losing him would mean bankruptcy and the loss of the property that had been in his family for 3 generations. "There has to be something we can do," he said, his voice cracking with strain. "This bull is worth more than everything else on this ranch combined." As the morning wore on, Goliath's rampage continued unabated. He had destroyed several sections of fencing, overturned a water trough, and was now standing in the center of the yard, bellowing with a sound that seemed to come from the depths of his soul. The noise was so loud and filled with such anguish that it made everyone within earshot feel deeply unsettled. Lily stood at the edge of the crowd, watching the scene with growing recognition. The bull's behavior reminded her of her own darkest moments after her mother's death. The rage, the pain, the desperate need to lash out at a world that had become unbearable. She could see in Goliath's eyes the same kind of grief that had consumed her own heart for months. Before we continue with this incredible story of how a young girl's song would perform a miracle that saved both a ranch and a tortured soul, I need to ask you for something that would mean the world to me. If you're moved by Lily's courage and you're hoping she can help this suffering bull, please take just 1 second to hit that like button below. Your support helps these amazing stories reach more people who need to hear them. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell, because what Lily is about to do will prove that sometimes the smallest voices can create the biggest miracles. Trust me when I tell you that the power of a mother's love, carried through song, is about to change everything. Now, let's get back to Lily, and the moment that would transform both her life and Goliath's. As the afternoon sun climbed higher and the situation grew more desperate, Lily made a decision that would have seemed impossible to anyone who knew how shy and withdrawn she had become since her mother's death. Without asking permission or telling anyone what she planned to do, she walked quietly toward the edge of Goliath's territory. "Lily, get back here!" Ezra shouted when he noticed her movement. "That bull will kill you!" But Lily ignored her uncle's commands and continued walking slowly toward the raging animal. When she was about 20 feet away from Goliath, she sat down cross-legged on the ground and closed her eyes, just as her mother had taught her to do when the world became too overwhelming. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, Lily began to sing, "Peaceful Valley." The effect was immediate and miraculous. Goliath, who had been charging and bellowing just moments before, stopped moving completely. His massive head turned toward the sound of Lily's voice, and his wild eyes began to focus with an intensity that was entirely different from his previous rage. As Lily continued singing, her voice growing stronger and more confident with each verse, Goliath began to walk slowly toward her. The ranch hands watched in stunned silence, afraid to move or speak for fear of breaking whatever spell was being woven by the young girl's song. In the peaceful valley where the gentle waters flow, there's a place for every heart that's learned to let go, Lily sang, her voice carrying across the yard with a clarity and beauty that reminded everyone present of mountain streams and summer breezes. Goliath approached Lily with deliberate, careful steps, his entire demeanor transformed from violent aggression to something that looked remarkably like reverence. When he reached her, the massive bull lowered his enormous head and stood perfectly still, as if he was drinking in every note of the song that had somehow reached past his pain to touch something deeper. Dr. Matthews watched the scene with professional fascination mixed with disbelief. "I've been a veterinarian for 20 years, she whispered to Jack, "and I've never seen anything like this. It's as if that song is speaking directly to whatever was tormenting him." Lily continued singing for nearly 10 minutes, cycling through all the verses of Peaceful Valley that her mother had taught her. With each repetition, Goliath seemed to grow calmer and more peaceful, until finally he lay down on the ground beside her, his massive frame relaxed and his breathing steady for the first time in days. When Lily finally stopped singing, Goliath remained lying beside her, his eyes closed and his entire body radiating a tranquility that none of the ranch hands had ever seen from him before. It was as if 3 years of pent-up rage and anguish had been released by the simple power of a song sung with love and understanding. "How did you know to do that?" Dr. Matthews asked Lily, as the girl slowly stood up and began walking back toward the house. Lily looked back at the peaceful bull, and then at all the adults who were staring at her with amazement. "My mama always said that music could heal anything if you sang it with enough love," she replied simply. "I think Goliath was just hurting, like I was hurting. Sometimes when you're sad, you get angry instead because anger feels stronger than sadness." Ezra approached his niece with an expression that mixed wonder with something that might have been the beginning of respect. For the first time since Lily had come to live with him, he seemed to see her as something more than just an unwanted burden. That was incredible," he said, his voice soft with amazement. "How did you learn to do that?" "My mama taught me," Lily said, her eyes filling with tears as she remembered Grace's gentle voice and loving guidance. "She said that songs carry the love of the people who sing them, and that love can reach places that nothing else can touch." Jack Sullivan, who had been working with difficult cattle for 3 decades, shook his head in wonder. "I've seen horse whisperers and cattle handlers who seem to have a special touch with animals," he said, "but I've never seen anything like what just happened here. That bull was completely out of control, and you calmed him with nothing but your voice." As the sun began to set over the Tennessee hills, Goliath remained peacefully resting in the spot where Lily had sung to him. The transformation was so complete that it seemed like a different animal entirely, and the ranch hands began to understand that they had witnessed something truly extraordinary. Lily walked back to the house with a heart that felt lighter than it had in months. For the first time since her mother's death, she had used one of Grace's songs to help someone else. and the experience had reminded her of the power and beauty that her mother had always seen in music. That night, as Lily lay in her bed listening to the peaceful sounds of the ranch, she whispered a prayer of gratitude to her mother's memory. Grace had been right about music being magic, and about love being the most powerful force in the world. Through the song her mother had taught her, Lily had not only saved Goliath from his torment, but had also taken the first step toward healing her own broken heart. In the weeks following Lily's miraculous calming of Goliath, the entire atmosphere of the Cedar Ridge Ranch underwent a transformation that amazed everyone who witnessed it. The bull who had been the source of fear and frustration for years had become as gentle as a lamb, but only when Lily was present. Her daily singing sessions with Goliath became the highlight of the ranch's routine, drawing curious visitors from neighboring farms who had heard about the girl who could tame the untamable bull with nothing but her voice. Dr. Matthews returned to the ranch several times to study the unprecedented relationship that had developed between Lily and Goliath. As a veterinarian with extensive experience in animal behavior, she was fascinated by the bull's complete transformation and the specificity of his response to Lily's singing. "I've consulted with colleagues at veterinary schools across the country," Dr. Matthews told Ezra during one of her visits, "and none of them have ever encountered anything like this. Goliath shows absolutely no aggression when Lily is singing to him, but he becomes agitated again if anyone else tries to handle him when she's not around. It's as if her voice triggers some kind of deep emotional response that overrides his previous behavioral patterns." The bond between Lily and Goliath had indeed become something extraordinary to witness. Every morning after completing her chores, Lily would walk to the bull's paddock and sit on a wooden stump that Jack had placed there specifically for her daily concerts. Goliath would immediately approach and lie down beside her, his massive head often resting just inches from where she sat. Lily had expanded her repertoire beyond Peaceful Valley to include other songs that Grace had taught her. Old mountain ballads about love and loss, folk songs about hope and perseverance, and gentle lullabies that seemed to reach directly into Goliath's soul. Each song had a different effect on the bull, and Lily was learning to read his moods and respond with the melody that would bring him the most comfort. "He understands more than people think," Lily told Dr. Matthews during one of her examinations of the bull. "When he's sad, he likes the slow songs that Mama used to sing when I was scared. When he's restless, he prefers the ones with more rhythm. And when he's really hurting inside, only Peaceful Valley will help him." The transformation in Goliath's behavior had practical benefits for the ranch as well. Jack and the other workers could now handle the bull safely for routine veterinary care, breeding activities, and pasture management, as long as Lily was present to sing during any procedures that might cause stress. The bull, who had once been a dangerous liability, had become the ranch's most valuable and manageable asset. But perhaps more importantly, the daily singing sessions were healing something deep inside Lily herself. For the first time since her mother's death, she was using Grace's songs to bring comfort and joy to another living being, and the experience was helping her process her own grief in ways that no amount of therapy or counseling had achieved. Ezra, who had initially viewed Lily as nothing more than an unwanted burden, began to see his niece in an entirely different light. The girl who had seemed sullen and withdrawn was actually carrying within her a gift that had saved his ranch and revealed depths of compassion and strength that amazed him. "I owe you an apology," Ezra told Lily one evening, as they sat on the front porch after dinner. "I thought your singing was foolishness, but I was wrong. Your mother was right about music being powerful, and I was a fool not to see it." Lily looked at her uncle with surprise. It was the first time he had ever mentioned her mother without criticism, and the first time he had acknowledged that Grace might have taught her daughter something valuable. "Mama always said that every song tells a story," Lily replied softly. "She said that when we sing the old songs, we're sharing all the love and wisdom that the people before us put into those melodies. Maybe that's why Goliath understands them. They carry more love than just mine." Word of Lily's gift spread throughout the surrounding communities, and soon people were driving from hours away to witness the extraordinary relationship between the young girl and the massive bull. Local newspapers picked up the story, and a reporter from Nashville came to interview Lily about her unique ability. "It's not really about me," Lily told the reporter during their conversation. "It's about the songs my mama taught me. She said that music could heal anything if you sang it with enough love, and I think she was right. Goliath just needed someone to understand that he was hurting." The increased attention brought unexpected opportunities to the ranch. A local music teacher named Mrs. Catherine Winters heard about Lily's story and offered to give her formal voice lessons free of charge. Several musicians from Nashville expressed interest in recording some of the traditional songs that Lily sang to Goliath, hoping to preserve the mountain ballads that were being passed down through families like hers. But the most meaningful change was in Lily's relationship with her own grief. Through her daily sessions with Goliath, she was learning to honor her mother's memory while also moving forward with her own life. The songs that had once made her cry with sadness were now bringing joy and healing to others, and Grace's voice seemed to live on through her daughter's growing confidence and skill. "I think Mama would be proud," Lily told Goliath during one of their afternoon sessions. "She always said that the best way to remember someone you love is to share the gifts they gave you. I'm sharing her songs with you, and you're helping me remember that love never really goes away. It just changes into something new." Goliath's response was his usual gentle nuzzle against her shoulder, followed by what could only be described as a contented sigh. The bull who had once been consumed with rage and pain had found peace through the power of music and the love of a young girl who understood his suffering. As autumn approached and the leaves on the Tennessee hills began to change colors, Lily realized that she had found something she thought she had lost forever, a sense of purpose and belonging. The ranch that had once felt like a prison was beginning to feel like home, and the uncle who had treated her like a burden was starting to treat her like family. Dr. Matthews made one final observation during her last visit to study Goliath's transformation. "What you've accomplished here goes beyond animal behavior," she told Lily. "You've demonstrated something that science is just beginning to understand: the profound connection between music, emotion, and healing. Your mother's songs didn't just calm a dangerous bull. They've created a bridge between species that shows us how powerful love can be when it's expressed through art." That evening, as Lily sat with Goliath watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, she sang "Peaceful Valley" one more time. But now the song carried not just her mother's love, but also her own growing understanding of how that love could be shared with others who needed healing. The girl who had arrived at the ranch broken and grieving had discovered that her mother's greatest gift wasn't just the songs themselves, but the knowledge of how to use those songs to bring comfort to others. Through Goliath, Lily had learned that healing happens not when we forget our pain, but when we use our pain to help others find peace. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Lily whispered a prayer of gratitude to her mother's memory. Grace had been right about music being magic, and about love being the most powerful force in the world. But most importantly, she had been right about the fact that the people we love never truly leave us. They live on in the gifts they've given us, and the ways we choose to share those gifts with the world. 1 year after Lily's first miraculous calming of Goliath, the Cedar Ridge Ranch had become something entirely different from the struggling operation it had once been. The transformation went beyond the gentling of one dangerous bull. It had become a place where healing happened daily, where music filled the air, and where a broken family had learned to love again. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen windows, where Lily sat helping Ezra plan the day's activities. The relationship between uncle and niece had evolved from reluctant guardianship to genuine affection, built on mutual respect and shared purpose. "Mrs. Winters called this morning," Ezra told Lily as he poured coffee. "She wants to know if you're ready to perform at the county fair next month. The music committee thinks your story would inspire people." Lily considered the invitation carefully. Over the past year, her confidence had grown tremendously, but singing in front of hundreds of strangers still made her nervous. "Do you think Mama would want me to do it?" "I think your mama would be incredibly proud of the young woman you've become," Ezra replied warmly. "And I think she'd want you to share her songs with anyone who needs to hear them." The success of Lily's work with Goliath had led to unexpected opportunities. Word had spread about the girl who could calm aggressive animals with her singing, and several ranchers had asked for her help with difficult livestock. Each case had been different, but Lily's intuitive understanding of animal emotions and her vast repertoire of healing songs had consistently produced remarkable results. Dr. Matthews had documented 12 separate cases where Lily's singing had successfully calmed animals that veterinarians couldn't help. Her research had attracted national attention, and several universities had offered to sponsor formal studies of what was being called therapeutic vocalization for animal behavioral modification. But for Lily, the scientific interest was secondary to the personal fulfillment she found in helping animals and their owners. Each singing session with Goliath continued to strengthen their bond, and the bull had become not just calm, but actively protective of the girl who had saved him. The most dramatic example of Goliath's devotion had occurred when a stranger visiting the ranch spoke harshly to Lily about her singing. The man had made cruel comments about worthless mountain music and suggested that Lily was wasting everyone's time. Goliath's response had been immediate. The massive bull positioned himself between the stranger and Lily, his calm demeanor shifting to protective alertness. Though he showed no aggression, his message was clear: anyone who threatened Lily would have to deal with him. The bond between Lily and Goliath had become the centerpiece of a larger transformation at the ranch. Ezra had begun hosting music evenings on the front porch, where neighbors gathered to hear Lily sing the old mountain songs and share stories of their own family traditions. The ranch house that had once been cold and silent was now filled with laughter, music, and genuine community warmth. Mrs. Winters had become a regular visitor, working with Lily to expand her musical education while preserving the authenticity of Grace's traditional songs. "Your mother gave you something precious," Mrs. Winters told Lily. "These songs carry the history and wisdom of your people, and through your voice, they're reaching people who need that healing." The financial situation at the ranch had improved dramatically. Goliath's transformation had made him an ideal breeding bull, and his offspring commanded premium prices. The fees from Lily's animal therapy work provided additional income, and increased tourism from people wanting to witness the famous singing sessions brought unexpected revenue to the entire community. But the most significant change was in Lily herself. The shy, grieving girl who had arrived feeling worthless had grown into a confident young woman who understood her own value and purpose. She had learned to honor her mother's memory not through grief, but through sharing Grace's gifts with a world that desperately needed healing. The county fair performance became a turning point in Lily's journey. Standing on the small stage with Goliath peacefully grazing nearby, Lily sang "Peaceful Valley" for an audience of over 1,000 people. Her voice, now trained and confident but still carrying authentic emotion, brought tears to listeners' eyes. When she finished, the silence lasted several long moments before the audience erupted in applause. But for Lily, the most meaningful response came from Goliath, who had raised his massive head and was looking directly at her with what could only be described as pride and love. After the performance, an elderly woman approached Lily with tears streaming down her face. "My grandmother used to sing that song to me," she said, voice trembling. "I hadn't heard it in 40 years and I thought it was lost forever. Thank you for bringing it back." Similar encounters continued throughout the evening, as people shared stories of how Lily's performance had reminded them of loved ones or filled them with peace they hadn't felt in years. Each conversation reinforced what Grace had always taught, that music was a gift meant to be shared and that love never died as long as someone kept singing the songs. That night, as Lily sat writing in her journal, she penned words that captured her journey. "Mama always said that when we sing the old songs, we keep the love of those who came before us alive in the world. Through Goliath, I learned that love doesn't have boundaries. It can reach across species, across time, and across any distance. The songs Mama taught me didn't just calm a raging bull. They taught me that grief can become grace, that pain can become purpose, and that love never really ends. It just finds new voices to carry it forward." Outside her window, she could hear Goliath's gentle breathing as he rested peacefully. The bull who had once been consumed with rage had found healing through music and love, and the girl who had once been lost in grief had found her way home through the timeless wisdom her mother had hidden in mountain melodies.